But this DNA testing is expensive, and so they set up a GoFundMe program, and I thought, well, if I can both contribute to that and also promote it, I'm absolutely willing to do it. So that's why I'm here. You've also, I think, you've woken a lot of us up to the opportunities we have to make a difference. But it does cost money. And I encourage you to volunteer your time and your intellect to do effort to do this. Others are trying to do away from stuff like that. Let's make this case emblematic. Let's think it's a perfect example of how we can make a difference. Ordinary people stepping up. Beyond we have to get money down. The easy path is the smart path is the one that is chosen for that. That's the adventure that's supposed to be on you. So I want to know, you can find this 15 GoFundMe page that got run by every donation will help this team get closer to finding answers. And for much more from John Ramsey, you read his wonderful book, The Other Side of Suffering. Thank you all for following my message today. We'll be right back. You want fries with that? Why can't we ever say no? You should. The FDA warns that consuming this compound could be associated with an increased risk of cancer. We investigate French fry laws. That's coming up tomorrow.
I had muscle cramps for as long as I can remember, but now that I'm using Theraworks Relief morning and night, they have stopped.
Get Theraworks Relief today. Available in stores everywhere. And the pain that anyone isn't America's best. For 2 minutes and a free exam are just $69.95.
Get away before your beach vacation with your husband. So you use Cottonelle cleaning bristles that remove more at once for a superior clean, which feels amazing. Care. Down there, care with Cottonelle. Is your dry skin cream not doing enough? Try Eucerin Advanced Repair Cream. 48-hour dry skin relief. Goes beyond ceramides with moisturizing factors naturally found in skin. Eucerin Advanced Repair Cream for healthier looking skin.
Take Prilosec OTC and take control of heartburn. So you don't have to stash antacids here. Here. Or here. Kick your antacid habit with Prilosec OTC. 1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn. This week, are you ready to win $1 million?
I'm so ready.
25 Watch Today at 3 on CBS 62.
I feel like I'm 35 again. Like the work next day and the gym, and I have 2 healthy lives.
So join the thousands of Americans that are saying goodbye to your aging sore and restless legs. They get back to doing the things that you love.
Insert the vehicle.
You feel it the minute you get that ticket and hold it in your hand. Mega Millions. You're 6 numbers away from your moment.
Arrest the motherfucker.
The delicious taste of Glucerna gives you the sweetness to crave while helping you manage your blood sugar. Glucerna, everyday progress.
Arrest his ass.
Watch Dr. Phil tonight at 5 on CBS 62. Catch Family Feud weeknights at 7 and 7.
Arrest this creep. This creep. He raped a 14-year-old girl and got away with it. You girl. And the judge, who was derelict in their duty to serve appropriate sentencing. Sentencing. Gave him a free pass. And this now. And this now.
On the next true crime, Diane Downs gave birth to a baby girl while serving time for shooting her.
I actually said it. And welcome to the Harriet Kimmick Show right here. You are streaming live. You can either find me streaming from youtube.com as well as Periscope, Twitter, Facebook Live, and a variety and plethora of platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a terrific Tuesday, right? It's going to be a terrific Tuesday. I thought you would say that, so I thought I would get myself ready to say that. It is still going to be a terrific Tuesday. How are you all doing? It is Tuesday. I'm not sure. Is it the 29th? Today's the 30th, right? Is it? Today's the 30th of April. It is unbelievable because I live in Michigan, and here in Michigan, it's good morning. How are you? Long time no see. And especially here in Michigan, it's been April for all of 30 days now. So spring happened a while ago, but you couldn't tell. It is 42 degrees outside, y'all, and it is chilly. And it's not just sometimes it's 42 degrees, but you go without a jacket. This one made me go, and I'm like, any day now, right? I'm like, any day now, it's going to actually start trending. And here's the weird thing. I feel like this is going to be that summer. You know, that summer that is just absolutely, you hate it here? Join the club. But it is almost as if I feel like this summer is going to be that summer that is just absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Tanisha Johnson, did you get my message yesterday? I said that I announced yesterday, maybe it was at a time when the microphones were off or so. I said yesterday that you should inbox me. I wanted to chat with you yesterday. Let me see. You still haven't. So I guess I'm going to have to, nope. So inbox me so I can give you my number. So I hate it here. I see. Okay. So follow me back since we're both from the same place. Okay. I'm going to do that right now. It's not giving me the profile, the option to. Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I did not do that. I don't know why it's muting people out or whatever. But anyway, I'll follow you back. Okay, so I'm gonna follow you back. And I'm gonna follow you back. There you go. Right? So you should see me following you, right? Oh, terrible. So it's Michigan. Yeah, I'm like, so yeah. The weather is always the biggest story around here. And that, of course, the crazy driving, because people here drive as if, I don't know if it's because we're far from California, far from New York. So we're kind of like in the middle of the country and we're close to Canada, but people here drive like crazy. So driving around Michigan, in the last 2 weeks, I went to Muskegon, which is way, way over on the northwest coast, way over yonder. It was like on the tip of Lake Michigan. And then I went to, where did I go? I went to Indiana a couple of days ago. So you drive west. I think as you go further west, the driving gets a little better. But here in Metro Detroit, oh my God, they're all Grand Prix drivers around here. Like seriously. And then the weather is, I just want some sun. But as I was saying, I feel like this is going to be that summer that is exceedingly hot because a few weeks ago we had a dry spell. You remember that? And it went like from winter to summer in 24 hours. So I feel like we're not really going to have that transition between spring where it gets 60s, so you gradually sail into summer. I feel like it's just going to go boom, and we wake up one morning and it's 80 degrees. And here in Michigan, we don't really like 80 degrees at all. We like our temperature like late 70s, 81, maybe 82. Maybe when it hits 90 and upwards, we're hyperventilating like, oh my God, it's so hot out. You know, you can't drive. It's too hot for us. And I think it comes from the fact that we spend so much time with, you know, it's cold most of the year. So I don't know. So let's see. So it's a terrific Tuesday. It's a terrific Tuesday. And I wanted to talk about, I woke up with something this morning, and I'm just going to tell you this because you're my therapist, right? So you're like my couch. So I'm on your couch. So when I go and talk to you about some things, it's like I'm going through therapy, right? So of all the weird things that could happen, I was writing a grant last night. Yes, I do that too, right? Because I have my own nonprofit, you know that, the Exodus Foundation. So I write my own grants, right? And I think this is my first grant for this year because it's beginning to be grant writing season. And I don't like writing grants. I don't like them because the language has to be specific. And I don't like them because it's not fun writing it. And then especially federal and state grants, government grants tend to be very monochromatic. The language has to be so, and they ask the same questions 500 million times. So after writing a portion of that yesterday, I needed a break. So I went downstairs and I went in the kitchen and I fooled around a little bit and had some fruit. And then I'm standing in the kitchen and it's 8:15 and I'm like, I gotta go to bed. So I went to bed early, but I said, let me calm down. So I started watching, I binge watch on Netflix. You know that I stream. So I binge watch. So I'm binge watching this show called Heart of Dixie, HART, Heart of Dixie. It's actually funny. You know, it's just entertaining. So I fell asleep and I'm in dreamland. I'm just sleeping. It felt so beautiful to sleep. I felt like I was floating on clouds. It was just, I didn't know anything. Then I had a dream. I didn't like that. So, you know, my mom passed away 2 years ago. Why am I dreaming about mom? So I dreamt that she came and she was standing over me and she said, close your eyes. You know, only your mother can tell you. Only your parent, they still have command of you, right? Even when you're an adult. So I dreamt that mom said, close your eyes. And when I wouldn't close my eyes, she closed them. She closed my eyelids. She touched my eyelids and closed them. And she said, why is it that you haven't come to visit me? That's true. She said, imagine I have children and not one of my children has come to visit me at my grave. Here I am laid out in my grave and nobody has come to visit me. And then she handed me a baby, ostensibly, I think must be one of my siblings' babies, but she handed me a baby and said, here, hold the baby. And then she walked away. I woke up out of the dream. It was so real, y'all. It was almost as if I woke up out of the dream and I'm like, tell me, it's 4:00 in the morning. But you know what? Here's the deal about that. When mom was dying, she knew she was going to die. So we talked about final arrangements, right? I said, get buried here in Detroit so that part of the grief process is going to the grave of the loved one. For those who are left behind, for the survivors, ourselves, right? You go to the grave, you place flowers on the grave, you memorialize, you talk to the person, especially in the first few weeks, months of the person's death, because it's your way of coping. It's not for the person who is dead, because obviously they can't feel, they can't touch, they can't communicate, right? But for the person who is left alive, you still feel as if there's some connection between you and the person is gone. So mom insisted. I said, Mom, you're not feeling well. You are not thinking. Think of longevity. Think of long term. What are your grandchildren? What are your children and grandchildren going to do? And the great grandchildren who are coming, we need, Nobody wanted to listen to me. My siblings, of course, if I like I've told you, they do the opposite of what I say. So if I say the sky's blue, they're gonna say the sky's green. So they said, no, that's what she wants. That's what we're gonna do. And they got on a plane and took my mom back home. Well, it's 2 years later. I know they're hurting because they haven't talked to me, right? So when they finally come to talk to me, that will begin their process of healing. But guess what? I'm at peace. So you know what I said this morning when I woke up? I said, well, I did tell you to be buried here. You would have had more peace. But nobody listens to Harriet. So be that as it may, I'm like, for all of eternity, you're going to forever wonder why your children don't come, because to go visit her at her grave, you'd have to get on a plane and travel internationally. I'm not about to do that. And this is what I was saying to people. After mom died like in June of 2017. A family friend's sister died several months later. And I said, do not do the same thing. Don't make the same mistake. It's for the children who are here. Let the children at least feel that they can go visit their mother's grave, right? Don't do that stuff. And I don't know, for some reason, people who come from other lands feel like when their relative dies, they put them on a plane to send the body back. Someday I'm going to talk about that. Just don't. It makes no sense whatsoever. The minute someone dies, what is left of them, the physical shell, is just a representative of what they were like when they were alive. When they die, their spirit has left and has gone on. What you do with what's left is immaterial, because that is going to pass away. The only way it doesn't pass away is if you pay thousands of dollars to be embalmed and to be entombed forever and a day. But other than that, it is what it is. It's bone. It's going to crumble. It's going to fall apart. The flesh is going to disintegrate, and it is over. And the person that you were, the person that you knew, no longer exists. And this is why when my father died the other day and everybody was going crazy, and I said, if there's one thing I learned from mom's passing, is that it's over at the point of death. And I said, they were like, well, come and say goodbye. And I'm like, there is no goodbye. Well, they're like, well, closure for you. I said, no. I said, death is closure. I said, one thing I have learned firmly, death is closure. At the point of the person's death, that's it. That chapter is closed. That chapter for them and you is over. You don't need to go to the funeral and stand around and pour your heart out. Have you ever been to a funeral and you see people pouring their heart out and people going crazy? Not me. I'm like, the minute they die, it's over, it's done, and that's it. So I don't know what mom is dreaming to me about coming to visit her grave. Say ain't gonna happen. First of all, I'm not ready yet to, I've compartmentalized that, so I'm not ready yet to dispose of that. I still want to think she's on vacation, and at some point she's gonna come home. So if that takes 20 years for me to get to that point, so be it. But I'm not ready to see the grave and to accept into my psyche that this is where she lays. I can't do that yet. I'm not ready for that yet. it's still fresh, right? Right. So see, I told you, you are my therapist. So I was on your couch. So there. So I want to talk about the morning after. And I don't want to, it's not the morning after pill. You know that pill that everybody takes, that people take, women take after they've had sex, and it works, I think, for up to 48 hours. And if they feel like they had unprotected sex, which means they might have been exposed to getting pregnant, then they take the morning after pill. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the morning after. Any event, what happens the morning after. So I'm going to give you a series of scenarios that have likely happened in your experience and possibly mine. I know you like to hear about mine, but we're probably not going to talk about me so much today, right? But think about it. What happens the morning after? For instance, in recent times, right, we have had a series of tragic events that have captured our focus, captured our attention. certainly has driven some of us to re-examining our spirituality. After the fire at Notre Dame, the following Sunday was Easter Sunday. Man, I've never seen so many people line up at church. There was one church service. I was driving past in Southfield. The doors hadn't even opened yet. And there were at least 50 people standing at the door, and the doors hadn't opened yet. And you could tell that the church is not used to that kind of bounty. And yet it happened. So what happens the morning after? What happens the morning after a tragic event? What happens the morning after a mass shooting? Oh, Jesus. What happens the morning after something terrible has happened in your community? I feel like there are some things in life that we never confront or we never talk about because we feel as if, well, in confronting it, it's going to be a problem. In confronting it, I'm going to disclose my vulnerability. In confronting it, I'm going to have to face my worst fear. And I'm here to encourage you that if that is the case, there are some things that we're heading towards something right now, that's for sure, that I feel that law enforcement know, but will not tell the public. They will not advise the public because they don't want the public to panic. But if you look at the trends, if you look at what's going on, I don't think it's going to take a rocket scientist or a prophet to say that we're headed towards something. In recent times, we've had mass shootings in places of worship. Finally, we thought, well, at least one place we're sure that we feel secure and that is, sanctified, and it is so sacrosanct that in no way, shape, or form could we have ever imagined that anyone would introduce mass violence to a sacred place as a place of worship. In fact, we respected people's desires to worship. We respected their choice in worshiping, however they choose to worship, whether they go to a mosque, whether they go to a temple, whether they go into a church, as those of us who are of Christian faith do, or whether they sit out under a tree and sing kumbaya, whatever they do. But the point is, we reverenced those situations. Well, what do we do the morning after? What do we do the morning after Sandy Hook, for instance, when 26 kindergartners were shot by a deranged young man? What do we do after watching police brutality, after we've seen where police have beaten a young man just because of the color of his skin? But then when a white guy does it, the white guy is escorted into a police vehicle and conveyed seemingly safely, but a black kid gets beaten up for handling his cell phone. Come on now. We've got to talk about stuff like that. That is a conversation that needs to happen. And if we don't talk about it, the police have to recognize that some of the stuff that they do, in one sense, you're asking us to support you. You're asking us to stand behind you. But then in another sense, you're going to beat up a young black man just because of the color of his skin. You're going to pull over someone who looks like me because I drive a Range Rover. So you think automatically I must be doing drugs. Yeah. So we've got to have this kind of conversation. So what all of this is doing, it's what we would call precipitous. It's headed somewhere, right? We have to talk about these things because invariably the morning after comes. Even in our relationships, the morning after comes. What happens when they walk out on you? What happens the morning after you get up and you realize that you were in bed with the wrong person? What happens? People do these things where they play musical chairs in relationships. They play musical chairs with one another, and you end up somehow the chair got flipped. You end up in the wrong bed. You end up sleeping with the wrong person. And then you wake up the morning after and you're like, whoa, what do I do now? A child conceives out of it, and everybody has to pretend that it is that person's child when it's not. And people are like, I didn't mean to, I didn't plan to, I don't know how this happened. What happens the morning after? What happens the morning after a job loss? What happens the morning after a pastor has to step down? What happens the morning after a plane crash? We have seen so many things happen in the last 4 months of 2019. We really need to start thinking what is going on, because there is coming a morning after, and that morning after is going to creep up on us unawares, and we will not be ready for it. If you look at all the stuff that has happened since 2019, we've had a plane crash that went down in Ethiopia. Then we had shooting after shooting, so much so we don't even report on it anymore. Then we had the shooting, 50 people 50 people were killed in one instance in a country that is not known for violence, in a place of worship, somewhere that somebody else determines is sacred. Whether you agree with them or not is immaterial. Well, yes, the young man who did it was acting singly, but it is what he represents. That is the problem. We are not looking at the big picture. We're not looking at what happens the morning after. How do people feel? Because if we really had started examining what happens the morning after, from the first church was shot up, Charlottesville, a few years ago, several years ago, when Obama was still president, we would have seen that something was wrong with that. And if something is wrong with that, then it means that you don't want somebody else to get the right idea. So treat it for what it is, a case of mass violence against people worshiping. No, what we did the morning after was what? We put a color on it. We said, well, that is a black church thing, and that's a black people thing. The person who did it was white, but that was just a deranged young man with mental health issues who was wrong and who made the wrong decision for his life anyway, instead of saying it is violence against people worshiping. So we put the wrong label on it the morning after. And here we are 5 years later dealing with morning after, the morning after. Easter morning, we woke up and people worshiping at a church in a whole other country were killed while they were worshiping. That isn't bad enough? Well, couple months before that, it was what? People at the synagogue on a Saturday. They were shot up and killed. Okay, so it keeps getting better and better and better. The morning after. The morning after. Forget about relationships. That's easy. You wake up, you find yourself in the wrong bed. All you have to do is what? Not go back into that bed the following night. No, you have a choice. You can't say, well, I can't help it. I just feel that way. Yes, you can. You have 2 legs and 2 hands. You don't have to answer that call, and you definitely don't have to go there. Do you see what I'm saying? But in these situations that are, guess what? Out of our control. That's why we can't face the morning after. Because what? It's out of our control. We have no control about it. We have no control about going to the mall and something happens. No control. We do want to go to the mall. This is why most of us today shop online. Say, hey, I have come to appreciate the benefits of what? Online shopping. Oh, yes, www.shoppingonline.com. I have come because I don't, as much, I enjoy a mall experience like you wouldn't believe. For years, that was my therapy for exiting violence while I was going through violence. So you cannot begin to understand what going to the mall is for me. I get excited about it. But now I have to think about, well, there could be a morning after, Harriet. Do you really want to do that? Do you really want to go? What happens the morning after, right? Somebody telling me it's a great show. Yes, what happens the morning after? It's simple to me that now, because hindsight, as they say, it's 2020, right? So we're all in this together. It's all of us, right? All of us. So, it's all of us. Hindsight is 2020. So now you're looking at it and you're saying, we need a better strategy for coping with stuff the morning after. You send your kid to school. Are there any guarantees that she's coming back home tonight or he's coming back home? None. I literally breathe. Just saying it is making me take breaths, because the most precious and valuable thing to me is not my clothes, not my money, not my house, not my car, not my business, not my reputation, not my name. The most valuable thing to me is what? Is irreplaceable. You know what that is? The 2 human beings who pass through my body, who call me mom, right? God forbid that I ever get a phone call or a text message that her school is on lockdown. My oldest daughter is done with school now, right? Can you imagine? When the Parkland shooting happened was when my senses became aware that there is a morning after, that you need to focus on this. Because the morning after the Parkland shooting, remember the Parkland shooting in Florida? The morning after, I had to take my daughter to school. I didn't realize I was shaking until she was getting out of the car. And I said, wait, because they get older. So when they were little, they were all hi mommy, bye mommy, love and kisses all day. And then they get older and they look at you like you wouldn't dare kiss me right here, right? So, but she was getting out of the car, and I said, wait. And I held her hand and she turned around and she said, I love you, mom, and kissed me. I thought I was like, oh, she remembers me. And I said to her, this is the first time I am taking you to school and I feel some trepidation about coming back to pick you up. Do you see what I'm saying? The morning after, it changed me. It changed me. The morning after the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral, I said to myself, Harriet, you've been asleep at the switch. Wake up. This is going to happen over and over. 7 days later, it happened on Easter Sunday. And that entire week, I could not sleep. I kept thinking it was because of the fire and what it represented, that, I was trying to get a message, or I was really thinking and meditating on it. But then it was Saturday morning, I woke up, felt some relief, and I said, oh, that's a bad sign. If I'm bothered by something and then I start feeling relief, the disaster comes the next day or within a few days. Do you see what I'm saying? The morning after, we have become so internalized that we look at entertainment and we focus on this thing right here. What's happening on our Facebook page? Who liked us? Who didn't like us? Who what? Can I be honest with you? Honestly, do you know that I don't go back and check how many views happened on my page? I just don't. As far as I'm concerned, I am the messenger. I'm doing the delivery. I do the delivery and I'm done. That was my job. Now, if they like it, they're going to view it. I do encourage people to share the information because I feel that it is going to help as many people as I can, right? And then when I get a bigger stage, it's a bigger stage. But for right now, this is it, right? But I don't go back and check how many likes because I'm not the person who listens to the roar of the crowd. Because if I were to live off that, or if I were to wait on that, I guess I would never eat, right? I would never do it. I would never feel that I have made a dent or an impact. But we spend so much time focused on the little things. We spend so much time focused on the things that are inconsequential that we're not looking at the big picture. I'm telling you, friends, something is going to happen. Because just look at the trend. There was a shooting this past Saturday at a synagogue in California. And the person who did the shooting is not the same person whom the FBI arrested recently, just yesterday, I think, for threatening to shoot up a synagogue in retaliation for what happened in New Zealand. And you think that we're not going to have a morning after? Think again. It's coming, right? It's coming because you got to understand, hate is a germ. Hate is a virus. It spreads quicker than the measles virus that is going through America right now. Hate is a virus, and there is a herd mentality that is attached to hate. So let's say I've experienced it. So I'm going to insert myself right in the midst of this. Okay. So my mother has 4 children. I'm the eldest of her 4 children. The other 3 don't like me. Well, the other 2 of them might be on the fence about, well, I'm not so sure she's a bad person or not. But the herd mentality, when they get together in a group, the herd mentality takes over and they're all like, yeah, kill her, kill her, kill her. She's a witch. She's a this, she's a that. I kid you not. They actually said, somebody actually screenshot a message that they sent each other on Facebook when mom died. And I was rolling on the floor laughing my butt off. I'm like, people literally have time. I'm like, these folks don't have. I just messaged them back. I said, they don't have enough to do. They have time to sit down on this. At the time I was embroiled in writing grants, I'm getting the shelter ready. I didn't have the time to pay to the naysayers and the negative people, right? So inserting myself in the midst of this, the point I'm making is this: when hate is united, the herd mentality takes over and absolute destruction reigns. That's what we're seeing now. Hate has formed its own unity. So disparate groups of people who otherwise would have nothing in common with one another suddenly have found a common bond. And they have united around that common bond and is intending to wreak havoc on masses and groups of people for no reason other than the unity of hate. So we now, having had the experience of seeing what hate has done, we have the Charlottesville experience, we have the synagogue in Pennsylvania, we have the mass shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, and then another synagogue shooting, then the Sri Lankan shooting. What do we have? We have a pattern that there is unity in hate, and more importantly, what? That we will have, there is coming a morning after. So what happens? What are we going to do? What if it's me? What if it's you? What if it comes to my door or your door? What are you going to do? What if you wake up and you become aware that the embers and fires, you are not dreaming. This is not something you're seeing on TV. You are right smack in the midst of this one. What happens? Now, from what I have seen and I am seeing, it seems that law enforcement is prepared for this. They're getting ready for it because it's not just the chatter that they're hearing, their intelligence gathering, whatever mechanisms they use, but it's patterns. Much like in our own lives, some of us have cheating spouses, cheating husbands, and so on. There's one thing that is common is that there is a pattern, right? And if you pay close enough attention to the pattern, it usually tells you what the end result is going to be. It will tell you. This is why some women who have cheating spouses are not surprised when the rest of us are like, oh my God, he cheated. She's like, she knew. Because based on the data that she has access to, she can see a pattern emerging. So, all right, so let's talk about these guys, the unity of hate, the people who proliferate on hate, the people who love to hate, right? They hate so much that they love it, right? They hate everybody. They hate themselves. They hate their lives. They hate the fact that they're losers at life, that they want to project it on people like me and you and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just like, I'm the president, I'm the king. I sit on a gold throne, I smoke gold cigars, and I'm just having a whale of a time flying on Air Force One. That's his whole attitude. What are you all worried about? I got the power. I have been given the constitutional authority and power to do what I want to do. So he's just like, chill, leave me be, right? They hate on people like you and I who are just going about our normal lives. Now, I don't have the constitutional power and authority that Donald Trump has, and I don't have the money that he has. One day I'll get there. But what I do have is what I value now, my freedom, my life, my liberty, and my pursuit of happiness. I don't want to be destroyed. I don't want that to be taken away. I don't want that to be destroyed. I don't want to wake up and find myself in a morning after wondering what happened. How do we put the pieces of our lives back together? Because one thing I know is that significant trauma exists the morning after. Now, I'm not talking about the slut walk of shame that some girls have to go through because some guy won't commit and you have to get up the morning after and walk through it. That's a whole different thing. There is no trauma associated with that one. Okay? Let's just be clear. But there is trauma after violence has happened. So you and I say, but Harriet, I wasn't at the scene. I didn't have a family member who was impacted, or I wasn't even in the vicinity. It wasn't even in my city, my state, my country. Here's the thing. Viewing it is enough of a trauma because your mind is going to say, that could happen here. And more every day, what we are finding is that this thing has no borders. It has no boundaries. It can happen anywhere, at any time, to anyone. If you notice, since these things have begun happening, law enforcement in your state, in your area, is issuing bulletins. If you see something, say something, for God's sake, people. If you see something, say something. You might be scrolling through Facebook, for instance, right? And you see someone posting stuff. They're posting images of guns. They're posting images of heavy weapon artillery. Look what we bought. They're posting images of them in stuff, and we're gonna do something that's gonna make us bad and so on. Screenshot that stuff and report it to law enforcement. See something, say something. The life you save could be your own. Look, if nothing else, less, you're at least saving us from the morning after. I don't want to know your morning after experiences. And please do not tag. Don't attach your morning after experiences after you wake up and you regret being with someone. If that were all we had to worry about today, I would just be sitting here and smiling and just feeling okay all day. But unfortunately, that's not our reality. My reality is now defined now by a group of people who are superimposing their brand of hatred on my lifestyle. They're telling me that I should not exist. They're telling me that I shouldn't feel so free to just be me. They're telling you and I that we shouldn't be free to just so exist. Now, people will say, well, don't let that control your thoughts. Don't dwell on it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Yeah, but the Bible also says, be wiser than a serpent and silent like a dove. Didn't the Bible say that? Okay, so be wise like a serpent. See something. Say something. You see it, say it. Because invariably, just read the young man whom the FBI arrested yesterday, somebody was online. And this young man posted what he was planning to do. And the FBI and sent it to the FBI. They were minutes late, but they caught him because, they can track everything. They can forget IP addresses. That's the easiest thing. They can triangulate where you are based on your cell phone right now. They can see how many cell phones are in this area and decipher which one was transmitting, which one was sending a text. They can do all of that. Is that Big Brother peeping? I don't even care, because at the end of the day, I want them to catch the bad guys. I want them to catch the people who are snatching girls off the street. I want them to catch the people who are taking mentally ill people off the street and cutting them up and selling their body parts and pieces. Yes, organ trafficking is a big deal. I want them to catch the people who promulgate hate and who sit down online all day. They have internet access. I don't know how. I don't know if they're grabbing satellite signals out of the sky when satellites are. I don't know how they're doing it. They live out in mountains and in bunkers everywhere. Some of them live in their mother's basement, and all they do is watch porn all day, and kiddie porn at that. And then they get up and have the nerve to go and hate people. We got to get over it, because there is a morning after. They're imposing their brand of hatred. Is imposing a morning after experience on all of us. But for the love of God in Christ Jesus, we're going to wake up. Do you see what I'm saying? So I am saying to you today, it's only a matter of time. We have to prepare. So you better have certain strategies set up. Recognize that you're going to experience some form of trauma, emotional trauma, from witnessing another thing. We have all been so desensitized, which is another form of trauma. It's dissociative trauma from observing people getting killed. Have you noticed that the media is minimizing how much coverage they're giving to this? It's not just because they don't want the people who have done it to feel good, that they see themselves on TV and their mugshot and so on. It's also to minimize the trauma, because now we have to go explain to 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and have mass shooting rehearsals and routines and so on in schools. Do you see what I'm saying? That is all dissociative trauma. But we are grown. We still have to take some sort of responsibility to ensure that we survive this and tell ourselves that this too shall pass. So make sure you identify therapists and counselors whom you can call on, right? And check on people. When something has happened, have a list. Well, I haven't heard from so-and-so. Pick up your phone and start checking everybody. Are you okay? You notice that when the cathedral in France burned, I reached out to one of my Facebook friends who live in Paris. She lives in Paris. And I reached out to her just to check in. Most of you do that when something happens in another city, in another state. You say, hey, my peeps who live in Florida. Hey, my peeps who live in Broward County. Hey, my peeps who live in Arizona or Phoenix or LA or wherever. How are you all doing? Check in on people. Make sure you have strategies in place. And make sure you understand where you stand in your faith. Now, listen to me very carefully. Look at me. Come. Look at me. I want you to look me in the eye. Come on, I'm looking at you. Listen to me. Love destroys hate. I am not asking you to be a hero. All I'm saying is love destroys hate. Look people in the eye. Stop judging people and using our body language to tell people that they're insignificant and they don't matter. They're reading this. I don't know. It's not because I'm who I am that I say hey to everybody. I just still say hey. I don't care how you look, even the guy who is begging, unless you really are a creep and you make me feel creeped out, then I'm probably going to mean mug you. But other than that, I'm still going to say, hey, how you doing? Can we do that? Can we smile? Can we just say, hey, say it. Hey, how you doing? Just say that and attach a smile to it. Hey, how's it going? I like to do that. And then I nod my head like, how's it going? That means I want you to. And if I look at you long enough and smile, you're going to smile back. And I'm going to look at you and smile. You're not going to smile with me? I'm going to get you to smile. We need to break it down because the hatred has spread. And you have to look at what's going on. Now, yeah, we trust the government. Yeah, we trust the government. But the government also needs the citizens to say, you know, I think something is, I don't know, that guy's wearing body armor. Why is he wearing body armor downtown Detroit, in downtown? You see what I'm saying? Why is he wearing, it's 90 degrees out, but he's wearing a big black coat. Maybe we need to just go have a chat with him. We have to, because the morning after experience we want to avoid. In much the same way, even in your relationships, you'll fight. Well, what happens the morning after? Can you talk to one another? So one of the things you learn is how about avoiding having a morning after experience? How about not fighting at all? How about agree to disagree? We can end this discussion and by just saying, you know what? We just agreed to disagree. I don't agree with that, but I love you anyway. Do you see what I mean? I love you anyway. Me and my children, I live with my children. So we have disagreements. I'm like, I love you. Yesterday, I'm writing this grant, right? And the grant is about sexual violence prevention. And being a sexual assault survivor myself, I was exploring stuff that perhaps would have normally made me uncomfortable, but my therapy clicked in, so I'm okay. So my okay syndromes clicked in, right? But in reading what happens to people who have been through sexual violence, I felt a wave of compassion hit me. So here I am, I'm shouting to my children downstairs and I'm like, hey, and I'm like, I love you. I really do love you. And they're like, okay, I love you too. Like dismissively, like, okay, I love you too. And I'm like, you don't understand. I really, really love you. And they're like, Mom, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm just reading this stuff. And it's just like, okay. And I'm thinking, oh, but for the grace of God. And I'm thinking about the people in war zones. Do you know what it's like the morning after a bomb has hit and decimated your town and there is nothing left? You can't buy food, you can't get water, you can't go do anything. What happens the morning after an army has passed through? We don't think about stuff like that. What if we started to think about it? I feel like we'd be more compassionate. The people who have this bond of unity, of hate, those folks, all they think about is their feeling of gratification that comes from, making everyone else uncomfortable. That's how they get off. I swear they get off on that. It makes them feel powerful, makes them feel like they're in control of something. But for the rest of us who have to deal with what happens after, it's just like at the end of a marriage. You spend some time together, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? The longer you've spent together is the greater the traction after the marriage is over. What happens the morning after? Recently, I read a story about a woman who was married for 28 years. 28 years, and suddenly her marriage ended overnight and she didn't have anywhere to go. What happens the morning after? We don't think about that. When people are entering into situations that cause relationships to falter, nobody thinks about what happens the morning after. Nobody thinks about how do you feel. Think about this. A child dies. What happens the morning after? How do the parents cope with that the morning after? Right? Your parent dies, your spouse dies. How do you cope the morning after? I was watching a show recently, and one of the things that happens to people after they have lost a job is what? The morning after. You're so accustomed to your routine of getting up and getting ready. You had no idea how that defined your life. What do you do the morning after? Like I tell you, I live alone. So my youngest daughter is going to go to college soon, right? Do you think I'm waiting for her to go to college to have a plan for the morning after? So the first morning when I would normally be taking her to school, and I've been so programmed since she was born, so now I won't be taking her to school. Do you think that I'm going to wait for that? No, I already have a plan. First of all, after I drop her off at college, I'm taking the next flight. Baby, I am heading to the south of France. I will be on a yacht in my bikini, sipping a mimosa. I'm done. Hey, say hey, right? That will be my morning after experience after she goes to college. When I told her that, she's like, oh, you think, huh? I said, yeah, well, come back when it's Thanksgiving. I'll make you Thanksgiving dinner. This was her. Oh, you think? She says, you do realize I'm going to confiscate your passport? Because she's like, no, heck no. You're not going with no boy toy on no yacht in the south of France. And I'm like, a girl can dream. That's one of my exit strategies for the morning after when she goes to college. What do you do the morning after your business fails? What do you do the morning after you get that result back? What happens then? So the doctor, you did a test and it's the next day and the doctor calls and the doctor says, and it's the morning after, what do? We got to have a plan. In other words, what I'm saying is to take control of our lives to the extent where these things no longer surprise us, where these things no longer have the power to make us feel powerless and impotent. That's what is happening to us. You realize that we're becoming paralyzed. Every time you watch a mass shooting on television, the morning after you feel less and less powerful. You feel as if there is somebody else who has control and it is not me. But here's how you take your power back. You take your power back by developing a strategy. So the next time there's a mass shooting, you say to yourself, I have the choice to not participate in this. I am aware that it happened, but I'm not going to watch it because it's going to subject me to undue trauma. You know what's the undue trauma? You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, at 1 o'clock in the morning, thinking something like this could happen here. Right? That is it. So now it's inevitable. So now that was 5 years ago when we had the luxury of thinking these were isolated things and isolated situations. And no way, Jose, could it ever happen here. Now we're more proactive. Now we say, in the unlikely event that such a thing were to happen, I have my therapist on speed dial. I'm going to call my friends and neighbors and I'm going to cook some comfort food. So keep some comfort food in your freezers. And you're all looking at me like, yeah, keep chocolate, whatever comfort food you have, and turn the telly off. As long as it's not a threat to you, as long as it's not going to immediately impact you, turn the TV off. Stop watching the coverage. Right? Stop watching it. Go cook some comfort food. Hold a baby. Get around in a circle. FaceTime your relatives. If you have children who are out of state at a college or your other relatives, FaceTime them so you can see their faces. So it reassures you that they're okay and that you feel a-okay. And more importantly, it's time for us to start going to therapy. We all need to examine our mental health. Hey, mental health has become a band-aid today. I recognize that. For everything that you feel, suddenly people say they have a mental illness. But we need to have some dividing lines between what is insanity and when people are just having a bad time of it. Some people are having a bad time of it, and as a result of a series of traumatic life events, they're unable to cope, right? And you have people like me who talk all day about this kind of stuff, and then people tune it out and they don't listen, and then something happens, and that's when you realize you really should have listened to what someone was saying, because that information is important to how you process, right? So we all need to develop a strategy about how we process things. We all need to. You have to have barriers. There are some things that I'm not going to allow or entertain to come close to me. I have certain filters and barriers. One of the things that I don't allow is personal violence to my person. So the minute I perceive that someone is likely to be personally violent, they're gone. I don't entertain personal violence either in speech or in actions. That is my way of protecting myself from the mental trauma that happens afterwards. There are also some things I don't do. Like, when they had the mass shooting in Sri Lanka, I watched like 2 minutes of it, got enough information, saw where it was going, and I watched no other images. I didn't read any more stories. I tuned it out and I went binge watching on Netflix. Netflix should start paying me. Yeah, they should start paying me. But there's some serious stuff in there though, right? I started binge watching. And then I went and cooked some comfort food. Yeah, like seriously. It was my way of my downtime. It was my way of kicking in my usual form of therapy. And then I went and did since I can't go to the mall all the time nowadays, I just do online shopping. Like I have a series of websites that I go to look at. Just imagine how I would look in this. This is how I would look. Ooh, this is going to look cute. And you just come back to normalcy. So those are your strategies. Develop your own, whatever works for you. For some of you, it's doing manual labor, like you go cut your lawn or something. You go mow your lawn. You go do your edge, your hedging, right? You go cut your hedging and do the edges around the lawn, and you make it just perfect. For some of you, you go in your garage, pull your tools out and start working on something. Some of you go down in your basement, you start working on something. You live in an apartment, you sit out on the balcony and look out at the sky and commune with the sky. Some of you look through your telescope. Some of you go on rides, some speak, some do whatever it takes. Develop a strategy and a plan for dealing with the morning after. And watch yourself as you go through this to learn what works better. Because these things happen. And what's happening is over a lifetime, we've now had a lifetime of experiences to know that things do happen. It's fair to say, right? Things do happen. So now that we know, it's time for us to start being proactive. So before the event happens, know that there is a plan and a strategy. This is why people tell me that I'm calm under pressure. Because when something is happening, my mind is going to, what strategies do I need to play out in this one? So I'm listening because I'm developing, I'm thinking. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I have the answer and I'm okay. As long as I'm confident that I have the exit strategy and I have the answer, I'm good. And that's where we need to come to. Have an exit strategy, because there's a morning after coming. It's a telling, because they're not going to stop. The unity of hate has, even right now, as we speak, they're communicating and planning how to destroy our lives. They're communicating and planning how they're going to destroy our peace. But take heart and take comfort in this, that the fact of the matter is they cannot destroy your inner peace. That if you know that you have inner peace, they can't take it away from you. And that is why I am the messenger today. So don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, because it is what it is. God didn't put all of this out there for us to be unaware. He wants us to be aware that there are things that are always going to happen. It's been happening from the beginning of time. Ever since human beings lived on the earth, they've always conquered, they've always fought, and conflict is ongoing. The problem with us here in America is that it's coming to us. Before, it was happening thousands of miles away. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Really? That's what they do to people? We need to send some money over there. No, it's happening here. And that's what is shaking us. And that is what is making us uncomfortable. And now we have to become just as proactive. Law enforcement is proactive. They're listening, doing whatever they do. We now have to develop this plan that I can control it. I can't control the environment, but I can control me in the environment. So have your plan. What do you do if something happens? You reduce your viewing time. Reduce how much of that image you take in. Call, check on loved ones, FaceTime people. On Android phones, I think it's video call, whatever. FaceTime people, right? Cook some comfort food. Go work on something. Read, do something. Do whatever it is that brings you down so that you will survive. My name is Harriet Kemick. Go to my website, harrietkemick.com. Thank you for being a part of my experience on this fine Tuesday. We're still going to have a terrific Tuesday because we have a plan. And having that plan gives us the comfort and the assurance and the confidence that no matter what happens, it's still, and hear me out, I'm hearing this, God is still in control. Yes. But these things, it is written that these things were going to happen. So we were warned. We chose not to believe it. Right? Go to the ExodusFoundation.com. Right on the homepage, it says contribute every dollar that you give. Come on, I take $1. Every dollar that you give helps keep our shelter going, helps keep us to provide services. We have bills to pay. Help me pay these bills. If it's just $1, I'll take it. Just click on contribute. It takes you right to the page where you can use your debit card, credit card, and we don't store that information. I don't see it. It's done through a third-party processor, so I have nothing to do with it. All I do is they tell me how much money each person sends. Do I send them a thank you note? Do I send them a letter? We are a 501c3 organization. Side thing here, we're legal, so help us. So go to the excellent questions. Feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, social media, anywhere. Just inbox me, send me an email and say, hey, Harriet, I want to talk to you. There are counselors who I will have, making sure that you can talk to someone. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you all. Peace, right? Peace, 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 peace. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Thank you. Be blessed. And now let the week